We've done some other great podcasts with Drew. You can find on the Temple Mount and Roundtable YouTube and BitChute channels. And that being said, today we're going to talk about his experience as a third degree Master Mason and what that experience has been like, what he's learned, and what it's all about as far as he can tell us. So that being said, welcome, Drew. Thanks for joining me. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it. We've in the past we've talked about spiritual traditions and practices and paths in life, and it's good to be able to come back and talk about quote unquote controversial or conspiratorial paths that are largely frowned upon, and a lot of misconceptions are surrounding the subject. And thank you for catering the space to speak on that.
It's my pleasure and happy to have you. So I am pretty much not very aware of the details of what goes on in Masonry, but before we get into that, what was your first exposure to it, or to phrase the question differently, how did you first get involved with or interested in Masonry?
So initially, I kind of heard about it in rumors in early 2014, 2015, as I was becoming a teenager, and I was like, oh, the creepy Illuminati, they rule the world. And then I found out a couple years later my grandfather was a 32nd Master Mason, and that made me kind of question the conspiracies that I heard, because my grandfather was such a sweet person. He was kind. He did everything he could for anybody, and the man's level of tolerance was above and beyond. He was not ignorant. He was just very tolerant. And, he had a way with speaking with people about things and carried himself in such a way that really inspired me. Towards the end of his life, he unfortunately lost both legs through amputation and suffered from MRSA. And it was pretty much like watching the man die of leprosy, right? And the whole time, he would get frustrated at times. He, maybe lash out here and there, but it was never at anybody in particular. He'd just kind of, fluster there and then go into stoic mode. He's very, very stoic of a man. As I watched him pass in his dotage, and upon his death, we had found out that he was a Mason. It really wasn't until he died that I had found out he was a Mason. And I found his codexes, his Brock's manual, and several other pieces of Masonic information and literature in general. And as I read it and I examined who I knew to be my grandfather, I was like, wow, this seems to have had a large effect on how my grandfather conducted himself and, was as a person. And it made me really interested because of all the benefits it had given him, That's largely where it kind of was I was conflicted, because I'd heard all these conspiracies, and then I find out, my grandfather, this beautiful person, is a Mason, and it just made me question everything again. And I was like, man, well, let me find out what this is. And so that in general began my journey. And along the way, I had met an individual here on Discord, actually, that was the first brother I ever knew as a brother before becoming a Masonic brother. And that started the whole journey when I started to ask questions about my grandfather to this individual that was a Mason. I started to learn more and more about Masonry, and it started to answer a lot more questions about what I had about Masonry and what it was, because it was so shrouded in mystery. And that really, it took about 3 or 2 years for me to really settle in and be like, okay, I think I'm capable. I think I am, honorable enough to become a Mason, that I can walk this path and, really do good for people that, I call brothers, and their wives, widows, and orphans.
So that's how you found out about it and became interested in it. I guess the second question is like, what exactly is Freemasonry? Like, how would you define it, just in general?
Freemasonry is a systems of allegories and symbolism that teach you how to become a good foundation in your society. You support it. You know what I mean? You're a part of your community. You're part of something that's building towards something greater. And what solidifies that is faith, hope, and charity.
Sorry. So once you decided to get involved with this path of allegorical initiation, what is the first point of contact between you and Freemasonry? Like, how does that journey start? Do you just call them on the phone and talk to?
So originally, like, I kind of like on Facebook was messaging this lodge near me, and I was kind of getting to know the individual that was in the lodge, and I didn't know who it was at the time. You know what I mean? It wasn't, you know, from lack of them telling me. I just didn't. I can't remember which guy it was that I was talking to. It's probably. I probably know it's one of two individuals that it could be, because they're the ones that mess with the Facebook or anything like that. And so I kind of was like talking to them for a couple months, and you know, it's sad because like a lot of the journey had kind of been spoiled for me in a way, because like I had somebody that I was very close to that was already a Mason, and I'd asked him so many questions that like when I got to that lodge, they were so excited to have questions. I didn't have many questions for them. I was just like, okay, this is who I am. I'd like to come and introduce myself, and I was very transparent with them. I told them, you know, I'm an esoteric individual. I have solid foundation in my religious beliefs in like Gnosticism, Gnostic Christianity, and and kind of got into this dialogue with him. I was talking about my grandfather and stuff, and and he told me, he was like, hey, we're here a couple of days a month. It's this day and this day, and you're welcome to come out, shake hands, get to know us, and eat dinner with us. You know, and I was like, okay. And like I kind of beat around the bush for a couple months. I think it was about 2 or 3 months. I was really nervous, and I was like, I really doubted myself. Like, and I really wasn't too scared about what was on the other side of the door of Masonry. You know, the secrets and all that. But I was nervous about, am I good enough? Am I strong enough to be, you know, worthy of this? Am I honorable enough? Can I focus? Can I do what this requires of me? So all this doubt was shrouding it, so I kind of beat around the bush for a while. And then I got there, and I just ate dinner with them and talked to them about, like, you know, what's going on in the world and, you know, what's going on in their lives. And I got to know them. And over that period of time, it was about 6 months of going to these dinners twice a month. And, you know, there were several things that changed about me. I cared about this, and so I wanted to be more presentable. So I'd like tuck in my shirt, put on my belt, you know, and I would, you know, not like necessarily like a job interview, right? But like you want to be like formal about it in some fashion, right? And that might have been just a coping mechanism for me. Many brothers don't do this, but I was just trying to cope with the pressure, and I was like, let me be more presentable. And so, you know, comb my hair, tuck in my shirt, shave, all that, which is, you know, taboo for me. Even a haircut is taboo for me. Like, I usually grow out my hair and donate it to kids for wigs, which I'm going to start doing again. I've told them before that, like, after my, you know, degree work and all that, like, I'm gonna start growing my hair back out, and like I like to shave it every couple of years to donate. Anyhow, I'm a little ADHD, if you can't tell. But so I'm going to these dinners, I'm getting to know these brothers, and eventually I ask for a petition. I'm like, I'd like to join y'all. How do I go about this? And like, you know, and they're like, just keep coming back. They weren't trying to avoid it, but they were like, they weren't comfortable with me yet. Like, and which is fair. Like, I got like an extrovert personality sometimes. Sometimes I don't. I'm kind of bipolar with it. But I was like extroverted now because like I was really curious, and and they were like, hold off. And so like I ended up talking to the brother I'd originally talked to about masonry, and I was like, hey, wait, can I get a petition and whatnot from you? And I fill it out and stuff like that, and then you sign it. And so we did that because he's in the same jurisdiction as me. So I took that with me to lodge, and I was like, look, I got a petition from a brother from our state, our jurisdiction, and like, is this enough? And I think I caught them off guard when I brought that in. But so I turned in my petition, and they kind of were just like keep coming back for like a month or so. I think they were on the fence with me still, because I could also be like socially awkward. I say too much sometimes, and these are like blue collar guys. Like they're like, they're plumbers, veterans. They work on air conditioners, or like one's a pilot, one's been like, you know what I mean? Like it's a huge variety of people from all different classes of society, and like I'm kind of like a black sheep for them. I'll be honest, because like I used to be like gothic and emo and all this weird shit, and like as I came to be who I am now, I'm trying to integrate more with the culture that actually surrounds me, which is just, good old boys, Southern mentality and shit like that. And like, I got to know these guys, and eventually they were like, all right, we're going to vote on your petition. And so what they do is they go and they vote on your petition. Now, if one person says no on your petition, you can't join that lodge. Now, you can keep coming back, you can keep coming to dinners, and eventually you can't get a vote if they all bond with you well. But largely, it takes a lot for someone to be like, not this guy. You know what I mean? And put a no in the voting system. So usually it's pretty sound. And so I got a clean vote on the first vote. And that's kind of like the due process. Or the vetting system, I should better say.
I see. Interesting. So would you say that Freemasonry is more about like a personal initiatory like process, or is it more about networking with other people, or is it equally both?
I would say that fellowship is more of an act of kindness, and that it should be charitable and unconditional, right? And so when it comes to like networking, it's only as far as the relationship develops with an individual, which is purely natural, right? So it's like being a part of any circle. Like me and you, Shogun, we know each other. We've known each other for a while. We've networked in some way. We've gotten to know each other, and that's been a privilege to both of us in other fashions. And that's largely how the misconception around like networking goes, is because like masonry is all about everybody being equal. We don't talk about politics or religion because they're divisive, and we all try to meet each other on this certain plateau that we're like, okay, these are the things that we can do to better ourselves and better our community. And it's less productive to focus on the more divisive things, right? I should walk back 2 seconds. Trying to collect my thoughts, because I had another point to the other part of your question. What was the second part of your question?
Well, the question was just whether you thought Masonry was more about like networking with other people, or about a personal initiatory process of
Okay.
like, yeah.
That I was going to say that the networking comes from like a natural byproduct, right? And the initiatory factor is definitely one that is, it's a journey that you take, and there are these people that you've built bonds with, and they guide you on this journey, and they are able to teach you allegory and play and rhythm, and it kind of taps into your subconscious in a way that you're like, oh, okay, I see that in day-to-day reality. And a lot of it is inspired from, the idea of like alchemy. Like I really do, like I'm able to see the connotation between like alchemy, spiritual alchemy, and masonry. So when it comes to like the initiatory process, there is like definitely a rite of passage that feels like you're going from being a child to an adult. Like reality sinks in, and you get grounded, and you find a foundation. And so the system of allegories and symbolism they use, it allows you to find that. It allows you to see it, especially if you grew up in like, Western Christianity and stuff like that. It definitely it kind of like hones in a little bit more. And that's not to say that Masonry is like exclusively Christian, because the story they pick from that the Bible is about like Solomon largely and his workers, and you find that it's not divisive. It's about the building of something new that's better for tomorrow. And you as yourself need to become bigger and better and stronger to help bring up that foundation, set it in stone, and round it out to where we can all survive together in like shelter and warmth.
So in order to achieve your rank of Master Mason, that's the same as saying a 3rd degree Mason. Is that correct?
Yes, it is the absolute equivalent.
Right. And so it's, is it Scottish Rite is the one that has 33 degrees and York Rite is the one that has 3, or is it the other way around?
It's technically Scottish Rite, right? So the Scottish Rite is, I don't have my numbers right, so I'm not even going to say which it is, but it's a segment of the degrees, and it's towards the end. But I would compare it to like a college education. You know what I mean? Like it's not, they have their own degree work, but it's done for you unless you become a member of it and you work on it and you want to contribute that to other people that want to learn it more in detail. But I would compare it to it's like a college seminar largely, and it's up to you how much you take from that. And then 33rd degree, it is an honorary degree. It's from a servitude of lifelong service to Masonry. You can go from a 3rd degree to a 33rd degree if you just happen to spend your life devoted to your community and stuff, and it just gets given to you. It's an award that comes from contributing a lot to the fellowship, brotherhood, and charity aspects of it. Stick around and you'll just get it one day if you try. It's not even something you should try forward to, nor do you seek it out, because it's it's like there's so much honor behind like a Purple Heart, which is like a different example, but in a way it's kind of similar. It's like, why, that's not something you would wish upon yourself to survive that circumstance, but if you had to, you're brave enough to undertake the weight that it bears, and charity sometimes bears a lot of weight. So 33rd degree is really just honorary to people that spend their time in there. You can jump from one to the other. So I don't have to go to like the York Rite before I join the Scottish Rite, which is like from like 4 to 14 and there's something. It's weird. I don't know the number system yet. I'm just now learning like Blue Lodge and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that the degrees of Masonry, there's the one honorary degree, and the rest of them are usually appendant bodies that apply to different things. So Scottish Rite is kind of like, you're getting more educated on where the biblical story comes from, which is sourced in the Bible largely.
So you're saying that most of the initiatory rituals and stuff are based on the story of King Solomon and his building of the temple?
Yes, you could say that.
Yeah. And is there any particular themes you can talk about in the first 3 degrees of Masonry, like in terms of what kind of symbolism or what kind of particular content they have?
No, you can't. And the best way I can say it is, it's largely because it is a spoiler, because there could be someone here that would like to join, and without the shock and awe value of experiencing it'll dull the brothers that would come into the fraternity. And so we hold our degree work in great secrecy and care and catership. There is, however, in the past, there's been degree work that has been done in public. I believe it was pre-World War II, maybe a little afterwards World War II, but it was something that we kind of reverted back into secrecy, because I believe, and this I can't say this factually, but this is my personal belief, right? So this isn't an educated estimate from what I've gained so far, but I think that after World War II, when 300,000 or so Masons were executed and interrogated for their secrecy, that we went deeper into secrecy. Because before then, we did ritual work in public, and it wasn't so taboo. Like, most people knew what Masons were, what they did. They were usually, blue collar workers. They've always been blue collar workers. So yeah, the degree work is something that, from, I think, trauma and controversy, we've been forced into, right? And there's also like an honor, like being honorable, like being able to hold and vouch for your brother in secrecy. It's like being able to confide in somebody is sacred, being able to know that you have a brother before you that would never betray you and stuff like that. Like, something to be said for that. And so the camaraderie is what holds all of that together, and that makes great builders. And the degree work is symbolic of the tradesmanship that took place long ago. And there's allegory and symbolism behind it. And then there's also now 1,000 years into the future, where we're running into this controversy where, like, now because we say something that we can't say, we run into, well, damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? At this point, because of that shrouded mystery. But the degree work is something I cannot discuss.
Understood. What would you say are the primary goals of worldwide Freemasonry? Like, what are their primary goals that they're working towards?
I'd say largely, number one is providing for the fellowship itself and, like, the brothers, and, like, helping each other become better men so they can go out into the world and help the world, as like a partial side effect of Masonry. You if you know many Masons in real life, you'll know that they'll probably go out of their way to do anything for you if you know and you're close to a Mason. They'll do anything for you if they really love you and they know who you are and stuff. And that's like I'd say a large byproduct of how we help society is because of like what we try to like instill in one another, the virtues of being kind, loving, and courteous to one another, right? And I think a lot of traditions teach that. They teach you to be compassionate, caring, and loving, and supportive. And that's one of the largest things I'd say we do. We also do real world work. Like we do charities, like we have the Scottish Rite Hospital, and the Shriners, they have a hospital too. And some of these dependent bodies, they do amazing things in reality outside of just building each other up as men, and to cater to all these things, because all the time spent in masonry is voluntary. We're not paid to do this. We don't get anything outside of it. You know what I mean? That's not how it works. Like it's an act of unconditional love. Like you don't just get something completely out of it for, sake of getting something. You do it because you felt called to do it. It's an act of compassion, whether it be to yourself or another person. And so from that instillment we get, we find a way to give that to the world, where we work through charity work, we work through like supporting the family members of Masons. Like a lot of people don't know that, but if you have a family member that was a Mason and you know how to, show proof of it, you can go to their lodge and you can ask for help if you ever need it. Like that's something that we do. And it's like a a weird life insurance policy that they do oblige 100%. Like 100% of the time they'll oblige it if it's true. And so, we spend a lot of our time taking care of our families, making sure our brothers are taken care of and their families, and as much as we can for the communities, as well as survive as a fraternity, right? The better we do, the better we can help others, is the way we see it. You can't work from rubble and just magically build a fortress and be able to provide all this. You know what I mean? It takes work, it takes dedication, and that's why a lot of what we do is voluntary, is because there's only so much of a foundation you can build on, and usually it is nothing,
Right. So now that you've been through this whole journey from first degree to third degree Mason, Master Mason, what do you think are the biggest like benefits you've gotten out of it on a personal level or a spiritual level?
It largely has re-solidified a lot of epiphanies I had from a younger age. I think the idea of oneness, it comes into play, that no man or woman is lesser or better than you. We're all equal to one another, right? And being charitable is the greatest act, and you cannot do it for yourself. You can't just do it to make yourself feel better. You can't just do it to get some virtuous stamp on your arm like you're a good boy or girl for doing that. You know what I mean? You can't do it for those reasons. Doing a true unconditional act of love is an act of God if you're able to do it. And people don't understand that makes such a huge impact. I learned that having good people around you, make sure that your garden is well tended to, and it'll tend to you, and that this what we're going through, if we go through it alone, we will live in suffrage. But if we manage to find a solid community that aspires to the same moral goals of helping people and doing what you can as you're capable, and letting people push you towards a brighter goal so that you can also help yourself and other people, that it's a domino effect, and before you know it, you're doing miraculous things for not only yourself but your community. And then it's such a subtle process that you don't realize it until you've gone through it all.
Well, thank you very much. And I mean, I want to ask you just, is there any final thoughts or takeaway message that you want to make sure that people get, either about Freemasonry or just in general?
I really ask that people that are worried about Masons, if they think that they are some Illuminati force in the world, that they go and get to know somebody that is a Mason. They spend a lot of time trying to uncoat the issues that cause paranoia around them and stuff. And as the years go by, we're realizing that it's harming us more than anything to not try to express what Masonry is to people. So please, if you're able to get to know somebody that is a Mason, because you might earn a friend you'll never forget, that'll really help you. That I can say for every brother.
All right. Well, I think that's a good note to wrap up on. Thank you so much for your time, Drew, and for sharing your experience. And thank you to everybody who listened and on the live audience. We'll talk again as you continue on your path of doing different degrees and learning more about Masonry. But this was a good introduction, I think, to the topic. And I appreciate you being on the show again.
Thank you, man. God bless. It's always a privilege.
God bless.